Okay, new week, new Parsha. Let's have a look and see what we've got. We're getting towards the end over here. There's not very much left. Got Parshas Nitzavim, Vayelech, Parshas Hazinu, Zois HaBracha, and that's it. We're done, and then we'll go back to the beginning again in Mitzvah Hashem. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Parshas Kisavai, Vaya Kisavai la'oretz asher Hashem Elokecha noisen lecha nachlo. So now, obviously, we've finished with the all the bits and the pieces. When we get to the land of Israel, here, what's going to be? We're going to live, we're going to settle in the land of Israel. What does that mean? So the first mitzvah that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to talk about is the mitzvah of Bikurim. So let's have a look and see what that is, because it's something very important about Bikurim, something very beautiful as well. V'lakachta mireishis kol priya adoma, asher tovi ma'artzecho asher Hashem Elokecha noisen loch, v'samta v'tena. So you have to take the first fruits. We'll talk about the details in a minute, the halachas themselves. But you have to take the first fruits, and you have to bring them to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Why? So it's already alluded to inside it that the pasuk itself says that why do you bring them? Because Hashem Elokecha noisen loch. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the fruits, therefore you need to give him a little something in return. And you got to bring them to Yerushalayim. And you have to bring them to the Kohen who's going to be there serving in the temple.
It doesn't say Yerushalayim.
Huh?
It doesn't say Yerushalayim.
If my memory serves me correct, I don't think the word Yerushalayim appears in the Torah. It appears in Nach.
Yeah, that I know. Yeah.
But not in the Torah itself, which means that, I don't know, maybe Pshat is until David HaMelech buys it and it becomes ours. I don't know. It's an interesting question. But in the meantime, what does it say? You bring it to the place here, you're right, it's a little bit ambiguous, right? You know, that you bring them to the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. Right? It's all a little bit ambiguous. And why do you bring it to Yerushalayim and you tell over to the Kohen that I'm here, right? As a declaration. And the Kohen then takes the fruits from your hand. And he brings them to the Mizbeach, to the altar. So what does the person who's bringing the fruits, what does he do? You have to say, Lifnei Hashem Elokecha, Arami oived ovi vered mitzayim avi agashan b'misei ma'at, that, here, let's read, an Aramean tried to destroy my forefather. Who is that? That's a reference to Lavan. Right, Lavan tried to kill Yaakov Avinu. We'll talk about that as well in a minute, because we don't see anywhere where he tries to kill him, and yet that's what you're saying over here, that he tried to kill him, and then we got sent off to Mitzrayim, and then we became a great nation. And we were enslaved in Egypt. And what happens? We were enslaved and we cried out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to the land of Israel. And now here I am standing with the new fruits, Asher nasati li Hashem, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me. And you bow down in front of God. Now, I don't know if you realize just how odd this whole thing is. Which means, I guess we understand why there's a need to bring, offerings. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a great harvest, you got to bring the fruits to Yerushalayim. That makes sense, but we'll talk about it in greater depth in a moment. But this whole dialogue well, it's really a monologue, this prayer that takes place over here, that Lavan tried to wipe out Yaakov, and then we went down to Egypt, and then we became enslaved, and then we were taken out, and then God brought us to Israel, and then we have the fruits, and that's why I'm here. It all sounds incredibly convoluted. Why don't we just get up and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a bountiful harvest, and that's why I'm here? What's this? It's like a whole trip through history that doesn't seem to have any bearing whatsoever on the first fruits. That's why we're here. If you want to tell me that it's Pesach, right, so I understand. That's why we're going to tell over the whole story of the Exodus, right? How we went down into Egypt and how we came out of Egypt. But it's got nothing to do with Pesach. It's to do with bringing the first fruits of harvest and standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and doing what? Offering up the fruits. Why on earth are we going through this whole thing over here? So, let's start at the beginning, because there are a few things we need to understand. First of all, which fruits have to be brought to Yerushalayim? Only from the Shiva Saminim. The 7 fruits that the land of Israel is famous for, those are the ones that have to come to Yerushalayim, which means that if you've got an orange grove, then you don't have to come. But if you've got an olive grove, then you do, right? That's 7 fruits that, what are the 7 fruits? They're wheat, barley, pomegranates, grapes, olives, dates and figs. Right? Those are the 7 things. And if you're growing those things, then you got to bring them to Yerushalayim. You got them all? Dates, figs?
Wheat, barley, pomegranates, dates, figs.
Pomegranate, date, figs, grapes.
Wheat.
You got grapes in there? Is that it? That's 7?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So let's have a look and see. First of all, the Gemara says that this was the most incredible mitzvah. This mitzvah of bringing bikurim to Yerushalayim, of bringing the first fruits to Yerushalayim, was such an important mitzvah that when the farmers would come to Yerushalayim, the people in Yerushalayim would stop what they were doing and they would come out to greet them. And they would escort them through the streets of Yerushalayim. We don't see that for anything else. It's an interesting thing. It really is. Obviously something very, very big is going on over here. Spiritually, something very big is happening. Before we get to Yerushalayim at all, what happened? Well, you've got a great big orchard. Let's say you're growing, you've got a huge amount of olive trees, or you've got dates, or you've got pomegranates, whatever it is, and you see the first fruits beginning to grow on the trees. What have you got to do? So you've got to take thread, red thread, and tie it onto the branches where you see the first fruits. Those fruits are now designated that they're going to be taken to Yerushalayim, right? Otherwise, how do you know which ones were the first ones? When they're finally ready, you collect them up with the harvest, you harvest the fruits on the trees, and then you bring the ones that have got the red thread, you put them to one side, and they're brought to Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, how were they brought to Yerushalayim? So if you were wealthy, they were brought to Yerushalayim on golden and silver plates. If you were not wealthy, it says that the wives of the farmers would spend the night before they traveled to Yerushalayim. They would take reeds, they would take, some kind of grass, and they would weave it into a basket, and the fruits would be put into the baskets, and they would bring those to Yerushalayim. Those were the poor people. That's how they brought them. Says the Gemara, a very fascinating thing. When they got to Yerushalayim and they gave over their offerings, the gold and silver trays that the rich people brought their offerings in were given back, and these reed baskets were kept together with the offering. Right? So, it doesn't sound fair, yeah?
But it shows something, giving the poor some kind of uplift.
Oh, here, let's have a look and see. So you know what, let's start with that before we do anything else. Let's start with that because it's a very fascinating detail. We're not doing it in order, but it'll be okay. We'll keep it in mind, right? What's Pshat? The Pshat is like this, that when the rich person brings his offering, so he brings it on a gold or a silver tray, what is the impetus, what is the motivation for him to bring it on an ornate, expensive gold or silver tray? Because last year his neighbor brought it on a tray that was nicer than his, right? So this year he is going to bring an even nicer tray in order to show that he's doing okay, right? I guess in today's language, it's like getting a new car, right? You could have managed just fine with the same model car that you had before. But because your neighbor upgraded and got a better one, so now you've got to get a better one too.
He wants to outdo the neighbor.
He wants to outdo his neighbor. The reed basket, on the other hand, says the Gemara, is woven by the wife of the husband, l'shem shamayim. She's weaving it because she wants her husband to be able to bring something to the temple, that it should be as mechubadik as is possible, as honorable as can be. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks, it's incredible, looks at the basket that's made out of reeds, looks at it as being something which is worth more in spiritual terms than the golden tray that the rich man brings. It's the most beautiful idea, which means what? It means that the kavanah is what counts over here. The intent is what counts. Not the cost. It doesn't matter. This person may go completely mad and he bring a golden tray that's studded with diamonds and it costs him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks and he says, I don't know, why are you bringing this exactly?
Surely they've got the same intent if they're both sacrifices to Hashem.
Oh, possibly, right? Which means for sure we have to take into account that there are going to be very wealthy farmers who are only doing this l'shem shamayim, right? They're only doing it because they want to bring honor to God, for sure. But the Gemara seems to indicate that the minute you've got, even if it's a minority, you've got some farmers who are not doing it like that, then it's a problem to take their trays. Now the Kohen can't differentiate, right? These two guys turn up, each one with an identical tray. The Kohen can't identify which one has brought it l'shem shamayim and which one hasn't. So, says the Gemara, the answer is to not take from anybody. The only people that they're going to take from are the ones that you can be pretty certain that they're made l'shem shamayim, and those are the reed baskets which were woven by the wives, and they pour their love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu is poured into that basket that they're making over here. It's a very, very beautiful idea, it really is.
Just like when you bring the carbon mincha, where the poor,
Yeah.
gives it to the Kohen.
Yeah.
Also, isn't it a sign of jealousy? This whole thing where I'm going to bring something because you.
Yeah. In a certain way, it's not good. It really isn't good, right? Which means that I'm only doing this because I want to show you that I'm doing better than you are.
Yeah, but I'm not thinking of I'm thinking across the lines of, oh look, do you know what I mean? This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do to connect you. And look, do you know what I mean? As in, this is how much I'm willing to spend to connect you.
The question over here, right? I guess the real question over here is this what I'm prepared to spend in order to connect to you, or is this what I'm prepared to spend in order to show my neighbor that I'm doing better than he's doing? That's the problem, right? When you're talking about weaving reed baskets, so this one can weave it with this pattern and this one can weave it with that pattern, but the bottom line is that a reed basket is a reed basket.
Yeah.
Right, which means that the idea of what's being done is being done only for God. Whereas over here, even if the person's doing it 95% for God, but 5% to impress his neighbor, then that's not good. It's detracting from the mitzvah. Right? I don't know. I think it's a fascinating insight. I really do. I think it's like, we would have thought like this. We would have thought the opposite. It was up to us to make these decisions. But say, the more ornate your tray is, the better it's going to be, and the more everyone's going to say, "Wow, you're so from," right?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it. That doesn't mean anything in your connection to God. The fact that you can spend money to get a tray.
Oh, good, right? Very good.
Yeah.
What does mean something with your connection to God is what's called your kavanah, your insight, right? Your the way that you feel about the mitzvah.
But then on the other hand, I'm thinking the other side of the debate, which is that when they used to give stuff off as korbanim to the temple, it used to be that used to have quite a, like quite a good amount of meat. I think or something.
Oh,
like
for sure, yeah.
So therefore, aren't we contradicting ourselves here?
With what? Again,
As in, okay, fine. If I buy the best meat, that means that I can give out the best korban potentially.
Yeah.
If I buy off the best tray,
yeah,
that doesn't mean I can connect to God in the best way. Or something.
Yeah.
Like.
So I think over here, what's pshat? If I bring my cow, and I've gone and I've spent like $100,000 on an Angus, what are they called these things? A black Angus, that's won all kinds of rosettes in the steak of the year award, whatever it is, right? But what's happening to that? It's being offered up. Which means at the end of the day, maybe if I'm really silly, I'm bringing this to try to impress somebody. But I'm bringing it because of what? It's going to be offered up to God. Whereas over here, the tray is not offered up. The tray,
on the tray.
That what's on the tray is going to get. That's what's the offering. Even though it's not burnt up. The fruits are given to the Kohanim. But nevertheless, the offering itself is what? It's a fruit. The tray is just the vehicle to be able to bring the fruits to the temple. Which, if you're pouring your resources into the tray, doesn't that mean something's wrong here somewhere? No. You hear the idea?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a difference between the two. So you can go out, you can buy yourself a Black Angus, and you can bring that to the temple, and that's an enormous thing. I'm not going to say, wow, he brought. Did you see what he brought today? Did you see the size of that thing? But Lamaisa, what's happening with that thing is that whole thing is going to be used in order to elevate ourselves to God. So some of it will go to the Kohen, and some of it will go to you. Some of it will be burnt up on the altar, right? But over here, the tray has got no intrinsic spiritual worth to it. It's just there to bring the food. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always looking out for the poor people. You should know that. Now, this in other places as well. You talked about the mincha. You know that people bring offerings. If you're a poor person, you bring an offering which is smaller than a rich person's, right? So one of the offerings that a poor person brings, instead of bringing an animal, they bring a bird. Yeah? And the Gemara says that they offer up the bird with its feathers as well. It's offered up on the altar. It's burnt with its feathers. Now, I don't know if you know, but the burning feathers have the most terrible smell. Something awful. So the Gemara says, why on earth would they offer up the bird with its feathers as well?
Because I think when it came garment, it smelled great.
Oh, so over there it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a little bit of a nace, so he makes a little bit of a miracle, and the korban smells great. But why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu do that? Get them to pluck the bird, take off the feathers, and then offer it up, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have to make a nace, right? So explain, because a bird that's got feathers on it looks fatter than a regular bird. Once you pluck it off, sometimes these birds, you pluck them off and there's not very much inside. And that's not fair, because here, this poor person's bringing whatever he can. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a poor person to feel that he's doing something of significance. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, offer it up as it is, and that way it will look a little bit more substantial than it really is. That's a very beautiful idea, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's always got his eye on the poor people, and normally it's the poor people that are bringing these korbanos with more kavanah, with more intent, and with more love, perhaps, than the rich people. However, let's go back to the beginning. Bikurim is something which is the most incredible mitzvah. It really is. Why? Because Bikurim goes against human nature. You're a farmer, right? You work right now you are. For our purposes right now, okay. You're a farmer, fine. Right? You work very hard. Growing fruits, growing produce is a very labor-intensive thing, especially if you go back in time. Even today, it still is very labor-intensive, but of course they've got all kinds of things that make it easier nowadays, technological advancements. But in those days, you got up at the crack of dawn, you went out, you had to look after your trees, you had to make sure that they were irrigated properly, you had to make sure that they weren't going to be attacked not by birds and not by any kind of bugs that were going to eat them. And you had to work very, very hard the whole time to make sure that your crop was going to be okay. Can you imagine your excitement when the trees first start budding? Now, you begin to see the first fruits are coming out.
They should make you feel good.
You feel great, right? I mean, all of a sudden, I excuse the pun, but what can you do? It's mamish the fruits of your labor. You worked so hard, and all of a sudden now you've got fruits beginning to appear on the branches, and you think to yourself, wow, this is fantastic. It's so exciting. And what do you have to do? You have to take some thread, you have to tie it onto the branches, and then when the fruit is ready, instead of doing what most people would do, which is to pick the first fruits and invite the family around to come and see what beautiful crop there is and to eat it together with you, what have you got to do? You've got to take it to Yerushalayim. You don't even get to eat it in Yerushalayim. You give it over to the Kohen. You hear? It's it's the most incredible idea over here. What is this?
The person itself does not eat anything, part of it, anything.
Not from the bikurim, not from the first fruits. Everything else is his.
No, some
Right?
karbanos you do.
Some you do, but not these. Right? This gets given over to the Kohen, and then he goes home and he can eat from all of the fruits that have been harvested from the rest of whatever's there. That he can eat from. Explain Chazal, explain the sages. You know, you have to be incredibly committed to do this. You're taking that fruit which you worked so hard on, and you're going to take it to Yerushalayim, and you're going to bring it into Yerushalayim, and you're going to give it to the Kohen, and it's going to belong to the Kohen, it's not going to belong to you. Why? Because the Kohen is the ambassador of God in this world. God gave you the crop, you've got to give a little bit back to God as well. That's why, explain the sages, listen to this, that's why, what did I tell you? I told you before that when they used to come to Yerushalayim, all the people in Yerushalayim, what did they do? They would stop whatever they were doing, and they would escort the farmers to the Beis Hamikdash, to the temple. Right? Why would they do that? Because these people are truly doing something which is of tremendous, that you need tremendous strength to be able to do this. To take those fruits that you worked so hard for and to give them over to somebody else. And that's why Bikurim is such a mitzvah that is beloved by Hashem, to the point that when the people come in, everybody stops doing what they're doing and they take them in, because this is like a tremendous moment. These farmers are coming in and this is what they're doing.
That's what we should do with Shemitah. The farmers, we should give them.
Oh, by Shemitah, it's even more, right? You're right.
By the kotel, give them a big welcome.
100%. You know what? The Emes says, you know, it's interesting that the farmers in Shemitah are called by Chazal, by the sages, they're called Giborim. Strong. You know, I don't know if you realize that to down tools for a year. Mela, you know, you down tools once a week on Shabbos. Okay, you know, we can do that, right? But for a whole year to keep doing this, it's something extraordinary. What these farmers are sacrificing in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Shemitah is something we can't even begin to understand. We've mentioned in the past, right, that the farmers, just because they're not working their fields on Shemitah, it doesn't mean they don't have to pay their mortgages, and it doesn't mean that they don't have to pay for, you know, the purchase of all of their materials and all of their tools and all of their you know, everything, right? They've got to carry on paying for whatever it is they're paying for, even though they're not producing in the 7th year. They're not doing anything. That requires the most unbelievable sense of emunah and bitachon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take care of them.
Is that a big percentage of those people around?
I don't know how big it is, but it's getting bigger. Every Shemitah, there are more and more farmers who are committing themselves to keeping Shemitah. And what's fascinating is that the Orthodox farmers were keeping Shemitah anyway, which means that the people who are now being added to the lists of the farmers who are keeping Shemitah they're not Orthodox, most of them. They just feel somehow or other that it's the right thing to do. So I spoke with a farmer once who told me like this. You know, farmers are normally pretty physical people. It's a pretty physical job, right? Being a farmer, getting up at the crack of dawn, going out, working the land, and you know, it's a lot of physical work. I was very surprised to hear the most incredible sense of sensitivity that this person said. He told me, he said, what you get out of your books, I get out of the ground. Which means that sense of spirituality, that sense of connecting together with something greater than you are. So fine, we call it God, right? But if you're a non-frum farmer, there's a sense of connecting to something which is greater than you are. It's a sense of working with the land and connecting with the land and realizing that you're just one part of what's going on over here, right? And everything else that's taking place is something which is truly magnificent. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of these people are now joining the ranks of keeping Shemitah, however difficult it is, and however not committed they are to religion, but they commit themselves to keeping Shemitah because they just feel, and that's like it's the inner spiritual person coming out when it comes to Shemitah. It's something fantastic, it really is. Absolutely fantastic. If you go up north after Rosh Hashanah, if you go up north, you'll see lots and lots of fields with big banners inside of them saying, Kan Shomrim Shmita. Over here, we're keeping Shmita. In the field, just like that, right? And they're proclaiming to everybody, this is what we're doing. Bringing Bikurim is like that's a small Shmita moment. Right? It's hard, but at least you're going to go home and you're going to have the rest of your produce and the rest of your harvest is going to be yours, right? Over here, but nevertheless, it takes a lot of strength, it takes a lot of self-will to be prepared to do that. So what's a pshat? When you come to Yerushalayim, you remember this whole thing over here, you go through this whole story over here that Lauffer tried to wipe us out, and then we went to Egypt, and then we left Egypt, and then we came to Israel, and that's why we're here. So what's a pshat? Pshat is like this, it's trying to teach us something very important. And it fits in very neatly with the idea of growing produce. The Jewish people, nothing is random by the Jewish people. Which means that everything that we have is built on our history. We can't move forwards without being aware of what we have in the past. That's why Judaism is a religion which it connects itself to the past in order to move forwards. Without the past, we don't have an identity. Without the past, without our history, we don't have a means of being able to understand why we need to move forwards. So this person's coming along and he's saying like this, I'm not bringing the Bikurim, I'm not bringing these first fruits now simply because I've got a crop. This year there's a crop and therefore I have to bring that crop to Jerusalem. But rather he's explaining to himself that everything that he's doing is connecting back into the Jewish people. Everything that he's doing is connecting back into Jewish history and allowing him to understand that there's something far greater than just that mound of olives that he's bringing to the temple, or more than just that pile of figs that he's bringing to the temple, but rather he's connecting himself into something which takes us all the way back to the beginning of the Jewish people. Which means our relationship with God is something which is paramount, and we're using the Bikurim, we're using these first fruits as a means to allow this farmer to connect back into who he really is and where he needs to be. Shishno, there's a fascinating halacha. It's halacha which most people are not very aware of. Everybody knows that on Pesach and Shavuot and Sukkot, they're called the 3 foot festivals, the 3 pilgrim festivals. Why? Because you have to come to Yerushalayim, yeah? However, what you may not be familiar with is that the people who are obligated to come to Yerushalayim, the people who have a Torah obligation to come to Yerushalayim on the 3 foot festivals, are the landowners. If you don't own land, you can come to Yerushalayim and you can be a part of everything that's going on, but you don't have a Torah obligation to be there. So the Kotzker Rebbe says like this, why is it that the people who are obligated to come to Yerushalayim are those that own land? So he explains, because working the land is a very physical experience. And very often a person who works the land, he can sometimes lose that connection, he can lose the spiritual connection between himself and Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him 3 times a year, I want you to appear and I want you to come back and to tap back in to the spiritual dimensions of who you are on Pesach and on Shavuot and on Sukkot. Because what's the pshat? When you're a farmer, you work hard, you take your crops, you plant them, you look after them, you watch them grow, you harvest them, you eat them, you could be left with the feeling that what you're doing is because of you. You did all this work, therefore you reaped that enormous harvest, and that belongs to you. What's called koich v'otzim yodi. I did it myself. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the Jewish people to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's taking care of everything, not you. You had a bumper crop? Good, that's great. Why? Because the larger your crop is, the more Bikurim you have to bring to Yerushalayim, the better it's going to be.
Interesting.
Really, it's a very beautiful idea, it really is. In a certain way, it's the same as giving charity. Right? A person gives charity, it's very hard to give charity, it really is. A person's earning a certain amount of money per year, and he's got to give a certain percentage away per year to charity. It's not so simple to do that. And you might think that the more that you're earning, the easier it is, but it's not true, because we're talking in percentage terms. It's that somebody who's earning $1 million a year has to give away $100,000. That's a lot of money, right?
But he has $1 million.
He's got $1 million here. So you're saying it like that. And the person who's earning $10,000 a year has to give $1,000 a year, and he's left only with $9,000. That's very hard. But the emphasis, it's equally as hard for each of them. Because a person who's earning $1 million a year is not living the lifestyle of a person who earns $10,000 a year, which means that your expenses go up according to how much money you have coming in. The more money you have to give away, it becomes harder and harder and harder, right? Why are we doing? Why is so much emphasis placed on giving charity? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to know, here, you earn a great living, that's great, earn as much as you want, but just remember where it came from. It didn't come from you. You were the tool that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used. You were the vehicle that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used to allow this money to come down into the world. And now HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to see you using some of it and pouring it back into the Jewish people, that there should be something positive that's going to come out of all of this that's going to benefit everybody. You hear? It's hard to give charity, there's no doubt about it. And the more you've got, I think perhaps the more you've got, the harder it becomes.
You know, the IRS always says, oh, I got to pay so much taxes. Says, that's good. That means you made it.
For sure. For sure.
About, you know how much you're paying? Says, yeah, but you made it.
The more tax you pay, in theory, the more tax you pay,
shows how much more you make.
That means that you're doing very well. But of course, it hurts to pay your taxes, right?
It hurts to shell out money. That's what it is. That's what.
You should know that I was once I have a cousin who invests people's money. So I don't know how it works exactly, but he takes a certain percentage at the end of the year, a certain percentage of the profits, I think. I don't know how it works. So he once phoned up one of his clients. I was there in the room when he was doing it. He phoned up one of his clients, and he told his client the client had to pay an awful lot of money. I think it was £80,000 or something. I mean, it was a lot of money. I was just one client, right? And the client was so happy. Right? It was a lady, and she kept saying, "That's great." She said, "I wish I could pay you more." Like, why is that? Because the more they're paying, the more money he's made for them, right? Which means that if you look at it that way, it's terrific. If you look at taxes as being something which you don't want to pay, then you don't. The less you pay, the better it is. What Eliyahu Weinstein, right? Alav Shalom. He used to say that at one point anyway in Las Vegas, in the shul in Las Vegas, you paid your shul dues according to how much income tax you paid that year. Which means that the more you've paid, obviously the wealthier you are, and then your shul dues were higher, right? It was probably the only community in the world where people were trying to pay more tax in order to prove that they were wealthy. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It really is. We look at tax as being a bad thing, but the truth of the matter is that tax is a good thing. It really is. Tax is something which allows us to be able to give back to the community, and it allows us to help other people.
Services.
Yeah, right. You come from a country where you've got people. Just basics. You've got roads. You've got street lights. You've got a police force. You've got everything there in order to make the place run smoothly. All of that's coming from where? It's coming from the taxes. If that's the case, then surely it's good to pay tax. Problems become when the tax authorities abuse their part, and when the other people abuse their part. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, that's the whole idea of Bikurim. Bikurim is a little bit like a tax that's paid by HaKadosh. We pay it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to be able to receive the blessings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to have. So down, the last word on the page, ki. Sechaleh. We turned over the page for those of you that are dedicated enough to want to do that. Ki. Oh yeah.
In the pasuk where he already says that I've given you and your household. You on the left, why bring up, why don't you say I'm Yisrael and you, the people?
Yeah, because over here we're talking particularly about taking care of people that don't have, right? The bounty here. What's the pshat? Don't make the mistake of thinking that you've made your harvest and you've given your bikurim and then you've finished. No, there are people in need that have to be taken care of as well.
Yeah, but here he brings practically everybody. We accept that the only one.
Here, you, your household, ata, you, v'halevi v'ager, because the Levi and the Ger are two people that obviously need help. Right, the Leviim needed help. They were supported also by the Jewish people. And the Ger, right, is also somebody who normally needs help because he doesn't fit in very easily.
Okay, makes sense.
Right, and then what do we say? Ki sechaleh la'aser es kol ma'aseh tvuasecho b'shana shlishis shnas ha'maseh v'nasata l'levi l'ageh le'asoim v'la'almano v'ochlu b'sharecha v'saveu. Now, there are different, during the 7-year cycle, the 7th year is Shemitah, but the other 6 years are split up, and there are different tithes that are given on different years, right? And every third year there's a special tithe which is given. Shnas hamaseh v'nasata l'levi. Who does it go to? It goes to the Levi. It goes to the Ger. It goes to the Yatom, to the orphan, to the Almona, to the widow. V'ochlu b'sharecha v'saveu. And you should eat them at home and you should be satisfied. Which means, again, it's not enough that a person fulfills his spiritual responsibilities by coming to Yerushalayim. That's not enough. He's got to take care of the people who are in need as well. Now, a lot of people in need. You know, there's halachas, it says like this. You know that on Yom Tov, for example, it's a mitzvah to eat a little bit more than you would normally eat, to eat wine, not to drink wine and to eat meat, right? However, the Rambam writes that it's better to don't eat meat, eat chicken instead and give more money to the people that don't have. Right? Cut down on your expenses and give to those that don't have. Or you know what? Have lots of meat in your home and invite people into your house in order to have guests over there for Yom Tov, in order to help them out. From people that it's difficult for them. Which means that the idea of always being aware of people who are less fortunate than you are. It's a very important concept. It really is. There's a very poignant story they tell. Rabbi Akiva, when he was married to Rachel, his wife, and they were very, very poor. Even though Rachel came from one of the wealthiest homes in the whole of Israel at the time. However, she was cut off by her father from the wealth because she married. At that time, he wasn't Rabbi Akiva; he was just Akiva, and he was ignorant. And the father was very upset, and they didn't have a bean. And somebody came to the door and asked. He was collecting for a kala that didn't have anything at all. And Rachel tells Rabbi Akiva that he should take half of the stuffing from their mattress. That mattresses were stuffed with straw in those days. To take half of that and to give it to the kala that she should have as well. The most incredible idea. No, this idea that here you could get it. They could easily have got up and they could have said, "Listen, we'd love to be able to give, but we don't have a thing," and they really didn't. But what did they do? They found something. So Rav Pesach Kron told over a story years and years and years ago, very, very beautiful, about an American bocher that came to the Mir, and he was learning over there. And one seder each day, the afternoon seder, he would learn together with a Yerushalmi, right? A Yerushalmi Yid. They learned in Yiddish together. This guy sitting and learning, the American bocher, it was a whole new experience for him. Anyway, he got invited one Shabbos. The Yerushalmi says to him, "Come by to my house. I want you to come on Friday night. I want you to come." So he says, "Okay." He says, "He'll come." He had no idea what he was letting himself in for. So he says on Friday night, they go daven together. They walk back to this fellow's home. He says he's never seen a home. There was nothing there. He'd never seen such poverty before. And he's sitting over there. There's a whole bunch of little kids over there. And he says, he felt like every mouthful of food that he was eating, he was taking it out of the kids' mouths. He said he felt terrible. So he went back after the Friday night. He went back to his dorm, and Shabbos lunch he ate somewhere else. And then the next time his chavrusa tried to invite him for Shabbos, he made up an excuse why he couldn't come. And then the next time he tried to invite him, he made up another excuse. Until finally his chavrusa says to him, he says, listen, he says, I'm not stupid. He says, I know why you're doing what you're doing. You don't want to come to me because you think I can't afford to have you. So he says, the truth is it's true. It really is true. He says, but me and my wife, we decided that once a month we're going to have guests in the house on Shabbos to teach the children what it is to have guests. However difficult it is, they should see that we can give to others as well. Very beautiful, right? But there's more. Listen to this. Lag BaOmer comes rolling around after Pesach. Lag BaOmer is a big day. By the Hasidim, it's a real big day. They go up to Miron, go to the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So this guy, he says to his American chavrusa, he says, come, let's go to Miron for Lag BaOmer, let's go together. So he says, okay. And they go. He says he'll go to his apartment, he'll meet him in his apartment, and they'll go together to catch the bus to Miron. So the kid, this American kid, he has a nice idea. He says, you know what I'm going to do? He says, I'm going to bring some ice cream to the chavrusa's kids. They probably don't have ice cream very often, right? He goes, I'll bring them some ice cream. So he bought, it's called an ice cream sandwich over here. Yes. So he brought one for each kid. I don't know how many kids there were, 6, 7, whatever there was. So he brought, however many there were, he brought them, and he gave them over to the kids, expecting the kids to say thank you. And he says the kids grabbed his bag, went running out of the house. So he was a little taken aback, right? And then, so they're waiting, the chavrusa has to get himself ready, they're waiting to go to the bus stop, and all of a sudden these kids come running back into the house with all of their friends. And they take out these ice cream sandwiches and they start cutting them up into little pieces. And they're giving little bits to each one, and everyone's saying a bracha, and after each one said a bracha and ate the ice cream sandwich, they turned to the American bracha and said thank you. You hear? It's the most incredible thing. I think that's the most incredible idea, I really do. These kids, how often did they have ice cream? Very rarely, right? All of a sudden, you would have thought, here, I got a block of ice cream. It's for me. It wasn't a big thing. It's a little thing like that. Made for one person. What did they do? They went running out to find their friends, to bring their friends in, to let them have a taste as well. You hear? That's what this is all about. This whole idea of giving to other people, being concerned about other people, making sure that others have as well. You can also have, you can live the life of luxury, you really can. In Judaism, there's no problem with that whatsoever. But you've just got to remember the other people that are around as well. ואמרת לפני השם אלוקיך, באתי הקודש מן הבית וגם נסעתי לגר ולעשם ולעמול ככל מצוותך אשר ציוויתני. You can then say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know what? I did what you told me to do, and I took care of the people in need. לא יעברתי במצוותיך ולא שכחתי. I didn't forget about them. לא יאכלתי בעוני ממנו ולא בעתי ממנו בטומא ולא נסעתי ממנו למס. Right? I didn't eat, and I didn't eat it whilst I was mourning, and I didn't consume it in a state of contamination. I didn't give it for the dead. Shemati b'kol Hashem Elokai. When we look after the others, it's going to bring with it the most incredible bracha for us. Hold on one second. Hashkifa mimo'oin kodshecha. Look down from your lofty place, min hashamayim, from the heavens. Ovareches amches yisov yes ha'adam asher nosata lanu. Right, that you should bless the land. Right, you hear what this person's doing? It's mamish beautiful. He's turning to God with all the bounty that he's been given, and he says to God, "Please bless the land. It's a land flowing with milk and honey." Yeah, I'm sorry.
What's the intention of him What's the intention of him doing all the things he's doing, like hosting the people, or whatever? Is intention because he wants to do it, or is intention to say, do you know what, God, this is what? Do you know what I mean?
I think the intention really needs to be both, actually.
Yeah.
Which means the intention is at the beginning, I'm going to do it because God made me do it, because most people, you should know, most people are pretty selfish. There are always good-hearted people who will do everything for everybody, that's for sure, right? But under normal circumstances, most people think about themselves first. So the motivation originally for helping people out is because God wants you to do it. God's commanding you to do it. But hopefully after a while, it will become something that you want to do.
I hear you. But are we running into the same issue as we did at the start with the cold gold plates?
Yeah?
Where we're saying, do you know what, God, look, this is what I'm doing. Look how much, do you know what I mean?
Yeah? So here, how's this for an interesting idea? It says like this, that the things that you buy for Shabbos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays you back. So it says in the Gemara, it says that your income for the whole year is decided on Rosh Hashanah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides what your income will be. But that's not including what you spend on Rosh Hashanah, what you spend on Shabbos and what you spend on Yom Tov. Right? That's pretty good, no? So you may say to yourselves, you know what, this is great. I'm going to go out, I'm going to go buy myself Wedgwood china and what's a fancy crystal, so whatever, Swarovski crystal glasses, right? And of course, it's not going to come out of my income because it's for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Yeah? But you're not really buying it to honor your Shabbos table. You're buying it because you want to show off to the people coming. That's not included. Hipshad. Again, it's got to be done l'shem shamayim, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling you that you got to do it. You've got to start doing it. Even if you start off doing it for the wrong reasons, hopefully at some point it will become the right reason. Here the Rambam says like this, if you've got $1,000 to give away to charity, you know, you could give $500 to 2 families and that would really help them. You know, that would take care of their needs for a month, right? But the Rambam says, you know what you should really do? You should give $100 to 10 families. Or give $50 to 20 families. Give out less to more rather than more to less. Says the Rambam, you know why? Because it really does go against the grain to help out other people, right? It's my money, I worked very hard for this. Says the Rambam, the more people you give to, the more accustomed you'll become to giving. The more accustomed you are to giving, the easier it will become for you, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will keep giving you in order to allow you to give more. You hear? Because at the beginning, I may not be doing it for exactly the right reasons. But as time moves on, and it becomes a part of who I am, it becomes a part of my psyche to want to give to other people, and then all of a sudden it becomes something absolutely beautiful. Which means, why are you having guests on Shabbos? Because Hashem says you should have guests. Why are you having guests on Yom Tov? Because Hashem says you should have guests. But after a while, your Shabbos table without guests, well, it feels like it's lacking something now. And your Yom Tov table without guests feels like it's lacking something.
Very true.
One feeds the other.
Very true.
Good. Here, we'll stop over here. Mitzvah Hashem. To be continued.